All righty. The free agency frenzy is underway. We got trades. We got extensions. We got a new signing, hopefully some more new signings. That is a fantasy relevant one at the least. There's some teams beefing up their offensive lines. We got a lot to talk about. And I would say the biggest thing that we should probably kick things off with are the trades that went down, because they're the most fantasy relevant of the things that we have. We got a lot of players being affected by this. Of course, the player who actually got traded to talk about. So the big dropped hammer yesterday was right before my plane was about to take off to come back to the beach country where I am in Mexico right now. DK Metcalf to the Steelers. It literally happened a minute before my plane took off. So I saw it the second we were like turn your phone to airplane mode. Like I just saw the deal.
I was in the basement playing some pool because I had some family over for my birthday, and I was just playing pool. And right after the game, I checked my phone. I see DK Metcalf has been traded. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then I see to the Steelers. I'm like, what? And then I see it was first, second, and I'm sorry. DK is a good receiver. 33 per is fucking outrageous. Outrageous.
Yeah.
That's less than Lamb? 2 million less than Lamb?
I mean, that's if a good receiver becomes available, a top 20 receiver in the league, Metcalf is probably, like, you kind of have to pay what the market dictates, which is, Metcalf shouldn't be getting like what Lamb gets, or, again, we'll talk about teams dragging their feet in a second, but like now Higgins is going to make more money. Probably Chase is going to get more money. Like there's a lot of ramifications. The biggest being, what do we do with DK Metcalf now? Because I think a lot of people, the common, take is, well, him and George Pickens do the same thing. They're both the same type of receiver. They're X receivers, boundary guys, downfield guys.
And I would agree that if you're basing like just a strict 11 personnel offense, there's a ton of overlap with their skill set. First and foremost, I don't even think it's a certainty that Pickens will be a Steeler, because I've heard some buzz, maybe like if the Patriots say, hey, we'll throw you a second to take on Pickens, and if the Steelers think that DK is already better than Pickens, they think, well, we just supplement the second we just paid. Easy move. But even if they just say, hey, we want to build Pickens, DK as our two wide receivers, we want to base out of 12 personnel, we want to sign Aaron Rodgers and just go to a shot-based offense, I wouldn't hate that.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I mean, they invested a ton into the like meat and potatoes of their offensive line last year in the draft and 2 years ago in the draft. So, I mean, Dan Moore, their former left tackle, just signed like a monster extension with the Titans, which we'll get to O-line additions and stuff later. But yeah, DK Metcalf, I mean, so he was, for me, Dynasty wide receiver 29. He was kind of residing in that, like, he's going to give you wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 production, really depending on how he swings on touchdowns and big plays. That's kind of what DK Metcalf has always been. Outside of his second season, really, we've never really seen close to wide receiver 2, 15 plus point per game kind of production out of him.
I remember I was called biased for saying that I would take CeeDee Lamb's career over DK Metcalf after that year.
You did. I did call you that at the time. So that is obviously not great. And that's why we project forward and maybe don't listen to what I said about that. But so I had Pickens at 25 in my dynasty rankings and Metcalf at 29. My question to you would be like DK Metcalf in dynasty or DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin type of guys, because those are all veteran receivers, right? Those are not guys that are like, you would take them in the same team situation. Because like, obviously, if you're like, oh, I'd rather have Jameson Williams than DK Metcalf, that's one thing because he's younger.
Yeah, so he's around that range for me too. Like I have my 7th tier right now, Pickens 26, Metcalf 27, JMO 28, Downs, McLaurin, Reed kind of in that range. You can make the case that Reed might be close to that next year because of how he finished the year, but I still believe that he's going to be it. I still believe like for me, he's kind of like on that fringe, because it's like I can see, this time next year, wow, we overthought Jaden Reed. Now he's like the wide receiver 17 in Dynasty, but I can also see, wait, this guy was like good 2 years ago. What happened? Like it's going to be either or, but that's ultimately the range. Like you said, like I would still take, assuming Ayuk is going to be able to come back from that ACL, I have him higher, Olave higher, assuming that the concussions don't derail his career. DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle would be the 4 names I have in that 6th tier. And then like once you get higher, I mean, obviously you're taking Flowers, Smith, Rice, Xavier Worthy. Obviously there was the controversy about the charges. Those got dismissed. And then apparently now there's been reports that it was with his ex-fiance and she wouldn't like leave his house and she was like ripping there was a lot of messy stuff that was going on, but basically the gist of it is the way it was reported initially was like, no, like Worthy was actually the victim apparently. At least that's what I saw. That's what I saw.
Yeah, obviously we'll have to wait and see what more details emerge from that, and if he gets
100%.
suspended, if he gets, we'll see what happens there. But
Yeah.
For now, we'll have to kind of wait and see on the Xavier Worthy situation. Let me just ask you this: would DK Metcalf move up or down your rankings? Would he stay where he is? Is there anything? Is this a positive or a negative for him? I guess would be the easy question.
I would say on one hand, probably I lean negative or neutral, but at the same time, it's 33 million per year, so like it can't be negative in my. I think
I agree.
I think it's
I don't
neutral.
think it's negative. I don't think it's
neutral.
Negative. I also think the same thing. Like if Rodgers or Sam Darnold or Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, whoever the quarterback is, again, those are varying levels of success that he would have with those guys. Yeah. But I think it's going to be Rodgers based on everything that we're kind of hearing.
I think Geno this year was better than Rodgers.
I think they're about the same caliber of QB, man.
15 to 20 range.
Yeah, like neither of them are real difference makers. And like, again, Pickens being traded or whatever would also impact Metcalf. Like if, let's say Pickens got traded right now, is it a positive, negative, or neutral situation for DK Metcalf? I would argue it's actually a positive situation if Pickens were to be traded.
Probably slightly, but like, again, like I think they would supplement that with maybe even a better target earner if they were to trade Pickens. So like the way I'm at with it is like the days of DK Metcalf being like, oh yeah, no, this is a guy that you can rely upon on a year-to-year basis being 140, 150 plus target player. I don't necessarily see that.
No, I don't see that either. And again, some people saying Rodgers is washed. I mean, like,
to me, Rodgers is. What do the Cowboys do?
Yeah, someone said, Cowboys. But like, dude, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and 3,900 yards is what Aaron Rodgers put up for that Jets team last year. So, I mean, I think the Steelers would take 3,900 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, to be honest. And of course, yes, I notoriously was high on the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. But I do think Rodgers throwing to Metcalf is like a decent fit. Think stylistically about what Rodgers does well. He throws a good deep ball, that kind of thing. So I do think it makes sense. Just like the Geno Smith JSN stylistic fit made sense, which was, Metcalf kind of suffered. He didn't get as many targets because JSN was more the easy over the middle target. I think Rodgers and Metcalf would work pretty well together, but we're kind of speculating on something that hasn't happened yet. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm not going to really move Metcalf in my rankings until we see what happens at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and also with George Pickens, who I think I would argue that he's probably a loser here.
Yeah. No, Pickens?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100% he is.
I mean, it could change. Like if the Patriots trade for him and extend him or something like that.
For what we know right now. Sorry, I'm just trying to find Jared, did the Cowboys make a move or
well,
I'm not seeing anything.
Sorry. With you.
Maybe he is. Sorry, because Twitter is like a mess right now, but
all in on Milton Williams before Carolina is what he said.
Oh. No, Milton Williams went to the Panthers.
Yeah, he said they were all in on him before he went to Carolina, I guess is what he's referring to as the thing. Okay, let's get back to the rundown here. Defensive players don't really matter for us.
Oh, they're okay. Yeah, no, I'll just say one more thing on that. They offered outrageous money. What I'm assuming probably happened is that was probably prior to they realized what the market may have been at on him. And that's why they brought back Osa, because Milton and Osa both play that 3-tech spot. So
well, but I mean that would be tampering, would it not? If you were offering Milton Williams money before you extended
Osa. Not necessarily, but like they would probably have gotten the gist from the league of like what the league was probably offering, and they probably would have realized like, hey, you know what? Maybe like what we're willing to offer isn't necessarily what the Panthers are willing to offer.
Yeah, that makes sense. So again, with Metcalf, I guess the gist of this is like kind of neutral for now on Metcalf, maybe a slight downgrade. Pickens, probably a slight downgrade. We'll see what happens at quarterback. Jaylen Warren, speaking of the Steelers, was also officially RFA tendered today. I'd say he's a good guy to sell high right now. Even though the Steelers no longer have a second round pick, they still could use a running back in the first round potentially. And also even in the third round, that would be a pretty big downgrade to Jaylen Warren, given how good the class is. So keep that in mind. If you guys are thinking, oh, Jaylen Warren to the moon, he's got these two field stretchers working for him and he's going to get a full workload. I would throw him out on the open market in your league and see what you can get in return for a guy like Jaylen Warren. Cause I think some people might be just assuming he's going to be a stud this year.
Hey, if the Steelers are, if the Steelers are willing to put a second place tender on him, maybe see if the market will offer you a second for him in Dynasty.
Yeah, exactly. So, also the first domino that dropped at the quarterback position and related to the DK Metcalf situation was Geno Smith, who was traded for a third round pick to the Las Vegas Raiders to reunite with Pete Carroll, of course. I would assume at some point Tyler Lockett will be brought in there, most likely, because Pete Carroll likes to have his guys spreading his message and all that kind of stuff. So as of now, it's Geno Smith throwing to Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. They'll probably add pieces at wide receiver, both. Yeah, Lockett probably in free agency, probably draft a guy relatively high as well. What are your thoughts? Let's talk about Geno's perspective first. What are your thoughts on Geno? If you had Geno on a dynasty team, would you feel good, bad, or neutral about this?
I'd feel ecstatic about it because the Seahawks had a bottom 3 offensive line in the league last year, and Geno's still, like, I understand, like, compared to 2022, the last couple of years statistically haven't been there, but the Seahawks interior offensive line was a complete train wreck. So
terrible.
So now you're going, obviously, familiarity with Pete Carroll, obviously Chip Kelly now calling the offense with the Raiders. You have Brock Bowers, you have Jacoby Myers, probably going to bring in a guy like Tyler Lockett. Maybe they draft Nash and Genty at 6, and all of a sudden, you're looking at the Raiders probably being one of the better offenses in the league.
Yeah, no, legitimately. So let me ask you this. This is where I had Geno Smith before he signed here, or he got traded here. I had him at QB 25, right behind Sam Darnold, Anthony Richardson, right in front of Matthew Stafford. Again, we'll talk about what happened with Stafford and the Rams in a second. Where would Geno Smith stay in that same tier for you? Would he move up closer to where like Tua, Michael Penix are? Would he still I don't think that's probably the case. I think we would all kind of agree that he should be behind those guys, but it probably just makes him a better asset across the board. He doesn't really move up the rankings in quarterback wise, but
couple spots for me. Specifically, so I have him over A-Rich right now. I have him over Sam Darnold, and he moved up to 23.
Okay, so you would put him comfortably over those guys. I think
comfortably, but like that's
definitely fair. Yeah. He's definitely, like, if you're in a startup, he's a safer asset to swing on than Anthony Richardson. But given the upside that Anthony Richardson possesses, you can maybe make the argument, in the 8th, 9th round or whatever, take a swing on the kid.
It's more so for me, like, I know Geno's a good quarterback, and like if you're a competing team, I would rather just take Geno, because at this point, how many years do you think each have left of being a starter between A-Rich and Geno? Who would you say has more years?
That's a really good point, because I think people will be like, oh, Geno is way older than Anthony Richardson. It's like, well, all that matters at the quarterback position realistically is how long you're a starter. And not only are the Colts not sold on Anthony Richardson, there's reports they've been shopping him. There's
Daniel Jones is getting linked to them.
There's reports they're going to bring in somebody. But like the other report is that the league in general just thinks he can't play. Like, it's not just like, oh, the Colts give up on him. He'll have suitors. He was a top 4 pick in the NFL draft. We might be talking about he gets dealt for a 6th round pick if the Colts give up on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because 25 and 26 in my rankings is literally Anthony Richardson and Justin Fields.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I think you can, we'll talk about Adams signing to the Rams in a second, but I think you can make the argument that just give me the guaranteed Geno Smith, Matthew Stafford. They're good quarterbacks. Yeah, they're older, but they're going to start probably longer than Anthony Richardson is.
Yeah, like that's kind of where I'm at with it right now in terms of the tier that I have it. So I would say the cutoff for me, Jared Goff at 22. So Bryce Young, JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff is my 18 to 22. That would be my tier 5 at quarterback. After tier 4 would be the Prescott, Lawrence, Purdy, Mayfield. Once you get to 23, Geno, Sam Darnold, Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson. It's like, it's almost, I feel the best about Geno out of that group, and it's crazy for me to say that.
I have a mini tier of Darnold, Geno, and Stafford.
Yeah, and that, honestly, now that you're mentioning it, I think that's probably what I'm going to adjust as well over on Flock.
Yeah, it makes sense to me that those guys, given their contracts, like Darnold hasn't gotten it yet, but he's probably going to get a sizable deal, presumably with the Seahawks, I would imagine. If he gets like a 3-year, $100 million deal or something, like he's definitely the head of this tier. He's still young enough that, you don't want to put him quite in the territory of like Tua and Goff and those guys, but he should at least be right behind those guys, I would imagine.
For sure. Ayuk to Cleveland rumors. That
would be interesting. From the Raiders' perspective, does this make you feel better, worse, or neutral about Brock Bowers? I guess would be. I'd say better, considering what he produced with last year.
Huge win. Geno's a good quarterback. Like, again, is he a top 10 quarterback? Like some say on Twitter. I'm not there, but like, is he quarterback 13 to 17 area? Like for example, like I would have him in the same tier personally, like where you have Baker. Like that's about the range I see. Like obviously Tampa Bay, the structure, the offense, the weapon,
a little younger,
a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Like I think that's a conversation, but like that's more like I'm pro Geno than I am anti anything.
Yeah,
like I think Geno's good.
That's definitely fair. I think you could make the argument that he's the new Kirk.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Cousins was like considerably 13 to 15 in the QB rankings. Some Cousins defenders would say he was a top 10 quarterback, so on and so forth. That's where Geno is now.
It's like, where's the cut line of a quarterback that you would extend to an extension? Now, like, I'm not saying like to top of the market extension, but like, who would you feel comfortable if you had to hand out a 4 by whatever year deal to a quarterback now? Like, what is the cut line? And like, it'd be right after the Geno Baker Mayfield area of like the 13 to 16 area for me. Like, once you get to, I mean, like, what's right after that range? If I'm looking at my dynasty rankings, like, obviously, you're not going to send like a Rodgers at this age because he's older. Derek Carr, Russell, like, you're not extending those guys. Obviously, Kirk Cousins is cooked at this point. You're not extending Will Levis. I mean, like, that's about the range I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying 13 to 15 as if that's more like in terms of just where we have them ranked in Dynasty. We're talking like 20s,
real
like
life quarterbacks. Yeah,
real life quarterbacks. Again, I will defend that Baker, I think, is a better quarterback than Geno Smith, and he's still
that's fair.
Getting better in this system. But anyways, we can probably move on. I think we pretty much covered everything for the Seahawks. I mean, they're going to be in the quarterback market. I think Darnold is the guy that they're going to be targeting.
Well, Jared, I would say this year, obviously, when you look at the stats, obviously Baker had a phenomenal year. I'm not going to.
He was better in 23 too, for what it's worth.
Yeah. I just think what we saw in 22, the last time that the Seahawks had an actually functioning offensive line. I mean, Geno threw 30 touchdowns that year. He's not a scrub. Like, you know what I mean?
Baker threw 40 last year. Yeah. So let's just be clear about that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
I think Baker's like a tier ahead of Geno, personally. If you want to say he's in the same tier, that's fine. I think he's a tier ahead of Geno, given that he's 6 years younger than him.
Yeah, I mean, I just think this is unfair when you look at how bad the Seahawks. I pulled up the stat when I did yesterday's video. The Seahawks offensive line. So there was, okay, let me see. It was from Norris.
Also, for what it's worth, I'll say a lot of good things about Baker, but consistent is probably not one of the words I would use.
Probably not.
Maybe not maybe game to game he ends up being consistent, but quarter to quarter and drive to drive he is not.
So there was this stat from Josh Norris who tweeted this. Geno was pressured on 38.5% of his dropbacks last year, despite having the 11th quickest time to throw. Sam Darnold, who was like the rumored replacement, third longest time to throw at 3.08, and his pressure rate was only 0.6 lower.
Yeah.
So Geno was getting the ball out of his hands, and
replacing Darnold or Geno with Darnold would be a pretty wild move if that's what the Seahawks end up doing, because the money's probably going to end up being the same. And this is also part of why I love Baker too, is that I just think he's all of his teammates love him, and that factors in. Not that saying Geno isn't like that. I just think Baker is like a level ahead of that. He ignites his teammates.
Oh, Charlie, I trust me, Geno definitely has a bozo gene. I'm not going to defend that, but like a lot of quarterbacks have a bozo gene. Let's keep it frank.
Baker also has one for what it's worth. Let's talk about some of the other deals here. We can move on. These ones already happened, but we haven't talked about them yet. So I feel like we should mention Deebo Samuel getting traded to the Commanders for a 5th round pick, and Christian Kirk getting traded to the Texans for like a late round pick swap. So Samuel obviously was a former like legendary wide receiver in 2021. He had a top 20 point per game season. So
one of the most efficient years I've ever seen. Literally one of the most efficient years I've ever seen. He turned 80 receptions into over 1,400 yards.
Yeah, he was incredible, man. He was so good as a rusher that year. My question about Samuel really is like, how healthy is this dude? Because that's been an issue for him in his whole career. He had pneumonia last year, which is affecting him. I tend to be in, man. I tend to be in at the price that you can get Deebo for in like a trade if you're a veteran, contending team or whatever.
Late 2.
I think he's interesting, man. You don't get upside swings like this. He's not 34 right now. You know what I mean? Like, he's like 29, 30 years old. He's got something left in the tank. He's got something left in the tank, man. I feel like he can be very, very complimentary to McLaurin. Jaden, as good as he is as a runner, people might be like, oh, that's a bad fit because he's not going to like throw the ball short or whatever. Dude, they threw the ball to Eckler and Ertz a lot last year. If Deebo Samuel is getting half of those targets, like, that is great news for him.
Do you remember we did the stream about a month ago, I think, before the trade happened, and I said, I think Deebo to the Commanders would make the most sense because look at how much production was funneled to the tight ends and Eckler last year. Like I said, and then like I literally think like a week later was when he got traded. I'm like, yep. To a T.
Yeah.
I will say, like, he might be more of a better and best ball guy in Washington.
He's always been that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's kind of... So, like, again, like, if you can get it for a late second in Dynasty and redraft, he might be a little bit pricey for me, depending on where his ADP lies, because people might say, well, Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, look at what they did last year. Now you got Deebo out of them. Like, I'm a little bit concerned. Like, what if they push him up to Where do you think the high end of where the market could be on pushing up Debo?
Well, given that
Maybe.
stacking will influence the market
That's
quite a
what I'm
bit, I
saying.
would say he'll be a mid fourth or an early fifth.
That's where I was thinking too, because like Terry's probably going to be about third, and then Debo maybe 2 rounds after him or a round and a half after him.
Home leagues, if you can get him in the 6th round because people are sick of him or whatever, I think that would be totally fine. And in Dynasty, personally, like I'd frankly be okay with paying a mid-second for him.
Yeah, mid to late 2. If you like, you're set at running back, and the wide receivers in that range are gone. Maybe you're not as bought into as I am on an Eli Manor or the depth of the receiver class, and you want to go send that for Debo. Like, I don't think that's outrageous.
I think come rookie drafts, man, if you're a veteran team trying to run it back and you have like the leagues that you and I play in specifically, Danny, where it's like we have 3 wide receiver slots, 2 flexes, full PPR, dude, guys like, I mean, we'll talk about Godwin and Adams and all those guys. Like you're going to be able to get those guys for mid to late seconds easily, given the hype of some of the rookies in this class. And I think that might end up being the correct play when all is said and done. If they're all going to produce like 13 to 16 PPR points per game this year, like you're going to feel pretty good about paying that for there's good running backs in that range. Yeah, you could get a tight end in that range. Yeah, you could get some of these tier 3 wide receivers in this class in that range, but I don't think I'll feel bad about paying the 209 for Deebo Samuel if I'm a contender.
For sure. But the other move that we do see, the following move here, obviously you mentioned the Christian Kirk to the Texans for the late round swap. I think it makes a ton of sense if you just have them. Honestly, at this point, we saw the Diggs role last year. He could play that, but I don't think he's a 1-for-1 replacement for Diggs. I do think he offers a lot more verticality out of the slot compared to what Diggs was at in his career.
Yeah, no, I think so. Kirk, for me, I have like bags upon bags of Christian
Kirk. You've always loved Christian Kirk.
I have always loved Christian Kirk. I love the move, to be honest. Yeah. I think it's a great move. Cool. I don't think it precludes the Texans from taking a receiver in the 1st round. Like they could still take Matthew Golden or something like that, or Egbuka or whatever, but I actually really, really like the move for Christian Kirk. I think he's going to end up being pretty undervalued on the market. Like he was, like I talked about him in both January and March's Dynasty trade targets by position. I talked about him in that video because he was available for like an early 3rd on the open market. And I was like, dude, you might get like wide receiver 2 production from this guy on the Texans.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, is Twitter down again?
It might be. I don't know. Elon's like, fuck NFL free agency. We're going to screw up, Twitter for today. But anyways, I like the Kirk move. I think it's underratedly good for CJ Stroud. I think it's underratedly going to hurt Trevor a little bit because him and like Trevor like put out like an appreciation post on Instagram for him. Like they were close by the sounds of it. So I think it like obviously Cone can find a guy to replace that role. And it's possible they even spend like their 1st round pick on a receiver or something. But I think it underratedly could hurt Lawrence a little bit.
For sure. By the way, we saw this as well. I don't know how much this actually fucking matters because he's not that good of a player, but Najee Harris saying some goodbyes to Steelers teammates on Sunday. So
Najee's going to nuke somebody. Let's get ready for it. He's going to nuke somebody. It's going to be the Giants signed him.
Make your prediction. Where do you think Najee is officially going to go?
I just made it. Giants.
Giants? Okay.
I think the Giants are the dumbass team that overpays for him.
Like I'm trying to hear me out. I would hate this because I want this to be the landing spot for a certain player, but holy fuck, he would fit Pete Carroll with the Raiders, man.
Yeah, that would be funny as hell. That would be funny.
Pete's gonna see the dreads and think, "Oh, bro, you remember when I had Prime Marshawn? That was a different time period. Big power back. That's what Najee brings to the table."
Dude, just draft Genty, bro. Like, just draft Genty. It's totally fine. Anyways, before we get into the extensions, because there was like a million extensions, we got to talk about Davante Adams going to the Rams, because that was the other big shoe that dropped. You were half right on a Los Angeles team signing Adams. I think the Chargers probably were quite in on him as well.
So it's official now.
How is this not just elite for everyone involved, first of all, for Adams?
First and foremost, it's official now that the Rams aren't moving on from Kupp because they don't have they don't want to pay him the money. They're moving on from Kupp because they don't think he's the same player as he was. That 100% is what it told me. Because again, and I would agree, to be honest, as much as I think Kupp can be a good contributor where he is, also you are frozen. At the same time, Davante Adams is clearly the better player at this point in both their careers.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. They're just like, yeah, Kupp is just washed.
Yeah. Like that is the big fucking message I got from that.
Yeah, usually when teams say that message pretty loud and clear, it's something that is usually correct. Like the team who moves on from a player is there's going to be times where they're not correct about that. But when it's an aging player or whatever, like you're probably right 9 out of 10 times, I would imagine, especially if you're a good organization like Los Angeles is. Yeah, I would feel pretty uncertain about signing Cooper Kupp if I was another team.
I will say, though, he would be quite the damn fit for Jacksonville.
Dude, it makes so much sense. I think there's a 90% chance it happens. I think Cohen worked with them, and so did the GM of Jacksonville.
Watson. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would make sense. I mean, regardless of fantasy implications, people might say, okay, how does this affect Puka Nacua? Puka Nacua is going to get his targets regardless. I think more than anything, this just makes the offense as a whole a lot better. Davante Adams at this point has more, first of all, he's more available than Cooper Kupp. We can say that with certainty with what we've seen from Cooper Kupp these last few years with the injuries nagging away. Davante Adams has been on the field. Second of all, at this point in their careers, Cooper Kupp cannot play the extra wide receiver role. Davante Adams, we even saw last year, he was outproducing Garrett Wilson with the Jets.
Dude, like me and you both loved Cooper Kupp in redraft last year. Yeah. From a best ball standpoint, we were like, dude, early 3rd round pick or whatever, we'll like sign us up all day for Cooper Kupp. And I mean, to be fair, it actually paid off for a good majority of the season until he started getting banged up or whatever. Where's Davante Adams going to go and draft? Like, he should go in the same range. If he's not going in the same range, I would consider him a value because, like you just said,
early mid-3rd.
Dude, towards the end of the season, Davante Adams was like on a tear with the Jets.
Who do you think, what ADP do you think ends up being higher? Cooper Kupp last year, Davante Adams this upcoming year?
I think it should be Adams, but I don't know if it's going to be. I think it'll probably be about the same, give or take. Like early 3rd, early to mid-3rd is probably where both like kind of settled in last year. I think it's great news for Adams first and foremost. If you have dynasty contending teams with Davante Adams on it, like this is as good as it could have gotten for you, to be honest. Oh, and if you have Stafford on contending dynasty teams, this is as good as it could have gotten for you. Again, am I really worried about Puka Nacua's implications? Not really, but it probably impacts his bottom line a little bit. In terms of
maybe his like 100% ceiling. Yeah.
People were drafting him wide receiver 1 off the board in best ball, like some people. So you can't do that now. He's probably like 5 or 6 now at this point in time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also, yeah, no Twitter. I can't even load on my PC right now.
Yeah, no, it's not really loading at the moment. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. We still got plenty of things. Yeah, we got plenty of things to talk about that have already happened. So those were like, I would say the big slap an underdog sticker on that microwave. That's hilarious. Those are like the big new changes, players on new teams or whatever. The majority of the rest of this stuff is just extensions, but like the biggest one. And I mean, you guys all knew this.
Hey,
like, I mean,
say you're told you so right now. Say it right now. All those fucking brain dads that were like, oh, how do the Bucs afford Chris Godwin? He's a Patriot.
Dude, there was no way Chris Godwin was going anywhere. Like, he literally left by
$20 million on the table.
$20 million on the table to stay in Tampa Bay. He's got his foundation in Tampa Bay. Him and his wife have lived here for lived there for like 8 years. He's the second leading receiver in the history of the franchise. The GM loves him so much. Like, he was never going anywhere. It was never going to happen. Everybody, like you said, Patriot, Ram, Jag, like everybody wanted him on the open market. He was never leaving Tampa Bay. 3 years, $63 million, $44 million guaranteed for a guy who's 29 coming off an injury is a little sketchy, but I still feel great about it. Dude, here's the thing with Chris Godwin. He's just wired differently, dude. The first thing he said on the cart off the freaking game with the Ravens is time to get back to work. That's what his initial reaction was after suffering a devastating ankle injury.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you, because it is a little bit concerning when you see the guaranteed money for a guy that has had 2 season-ending lower body injuries to either leg in the last 4 years. Like, it is a bit concerning, but at the same time, it's like, even if by year 2 or year 3 of the deal, maybe he's not himself, he earned the contract. Like, he is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer for life. And like, I think that's what it epitomized. Like, obviously, again, he wants to be a Buccaneer for life because that's why he left the money on the table. And it makes sense why, again, there's risk levels, obviously, with him coming back from the injury, but it makes sense why a team like the Patriots would throw the bag, considering the fact that the quarterback in 4 years may be making, at that point, $75 million per, so you may as well throw extra million on the table at free agents to get them now.
Dude, here's why I have not really that many questions. First of all, he already came back from a more severe injury. You and I were there, Danny. That first game, he was back in 8 months after an ACL tear in Dallas. He had 1,000 yards 142 targets and 3 touchdowns, 1 year removed from an ACL tear in which he started the season after not practicing all of training camp, and he was an 8-month timeline recovery from that injury. This is not as severe of an injury as that one was.
No, 100%. I will say though, I mean, obviously this is like a little bit, you guys can take our word for it or not, but just even talking to his dad, like when we did talk to him in Texas, like you could just tell like the work ethic in that family was evident when you're having that conversation with them.
R.I.P. Like, by the way, too. R.I.P. to his father. Yeah, he was a great dude, man.
100%. I mean, I still remember he's like, oh, if you guys don't get the game in your area, use this. I'll still remember. I believe it was Fubo, no?
Dude, he gave me his phone number.
Dofu. Yeah.
He gave me his phone number.
Class act,
dude. Godwin's a beast, man. I'm so glad he's back in Tampa Bay. He's literally him and Evans are the 2 leading receivers. Two of honestly, on it, like no joke here, other than Mike Allstott, I guess, probably the 2 best Buccaneers in the history of the franchise on offense. Like Evans and Godwin are studs, man. Like obviously when Wirfs is done playing or whatever, it'll be conversations and stuff like that. But so glad he's back. He's definitely going to end up being probably a decent value in redraft again. Dynasty wise and even redraft wise too, we got to be a little bit wary about the injury, but as long as he's hitting his timelines and all that kind of stuff, there's not one player in the league that I
bet against.
Doubt is like there's nobody working harder to come back from an injury than Chris Godwin. Let's just be perfectly clear about that.
For sure. And you already know right now there's going to be people that are like, oh, given the uncertainty around the injury, I would take McMillan straight up over Godwin in redraft. You know there's going to be people tweeting that in fucking August.
Yeah, like let's just also be perfectly clear about something. When Godwin is on the field, McMillan is the 3. Like it's not going to be McMillan outproduces him because he's a young player ascending. Like you and I are both very pro young players. Conned on older players, but I know how this team feels about Godwin. I know how Baker feels about Godwin. I know how Josh Grizzard, the new offensive coordinator, feels about Godwin. What was the plays that Josh Grizzard was calling last year? 3rd down. You know who's our 3rd down guy? Chris Godwin. So I feel pretty good about what's going to happen with him this year. And I feel like wherever his ADP winds up, whatever you have to pay for him in Dynasty is going to be a good value. It's going to look like one, or at least.
Yeah. And I mean, we could just get to the next biggest extension, the one that probably shocked a lot of us yesterday. Cause I mean, the guy had 4 years left on his deal and got an extension. So Josh Allen on surface level, when I first saw the deal, I'm like, okay, 6 by 330, 55 per, like he could have gotten more. But then I contextualized, oh no, it's basically a 2-year extension because he had 4 years left. So they're giving him a $15 million raise across the 4 years that he was scheduled to make 4 by 160. So when you're doing the math on the actual extension itself, if he's going from 4 by 160 to now he's making 55 million per across these next 4 years, those last 2 years, the extension is basically just 2 by 170.
Yeah. It's insane. So side note on this whole extension, obviously
2 by 170. Exactly.
Here's the side note on this whole extension. Good teams extend their good players when they don't have to. Bad teams drag their feet in negotiations.
Bad teams wait until Myles Garrett signs $40 million per year to sign Micah Parsons.
Yeah, Danny's feeling the brunt of it, obviously, as a Cowboys fan. You guys dragged your feet on Dak twice. You've dragged your feet on CeeDee Lamb. You dragged your feet on Micah Parsons. And you're going to continue to do so. We're going to be talking about August 13th or whatever, and Micah doesn't have a deal still. Like, I already know what's going to happen because that's what the Dallas Cowboys do. The Cincinnati Bengals are dragging their feet on T. Higgins, dragging their feet on Jamar Chase. They could have extended T. Higgins last year at $28 million per year, whatever T. Higgins would have gotten, and he would be extended right now, and you'd have the money to extend Jamar Chase and Burrow. Like, teams who know what they're doing, Tampa being one of them, Philadelphia being one of them, Buffalo being one of them, they just give their good players money when they need to. Like, it's not that big of a deal. That's what your cap space is for. You don't want to be the Patriots with $129 million and no players to spend it on from your own team.
Trayvon Merrick expected to sign 3 by 51 with the Panthers. Not bad. Also, Jared, I can guarantee you they're not trading Micah.
No, they're not going to trade Micah.
They're going to wait and then sign up for fucking $46 million per year because they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly. We all know what's going to happen here. This is good. He's going to hold out a training camp, hold out of OTAs, hold out everything. And 2 weeks before the season starts, he's going to sign for $45 million per year. Everybody knows this is coming.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It happens every star player the Cowboys have. It happens with every team that refuses to pay their stars ahead of time. How good is Davante Smith's contract aging right now for the Philadelphia Eagles? How good is Mike Evans' contract aging for the Bucs right now? Like,
The
Good
only
player,
one we didn't
good
pay
players
ahead.
sign back with your team.
The
It's
only
so
one we
easy.
the only one we paid ahead was the guy that is probably cooked.
Diggs?
He's cooked.
Yikes.
He didn't take care of himself after the ACL injury. Now needs another surgery on his ACL to clean shit up after a horrible year this year, even when he played. Apparently, they're going to cut him.
Yeah.
That's
It's
the
like
rumor.
not looking good.
But like it's and the biggest misconception I hear people say all the time, well, the Cowboys have $58 million in cap space right now. Like if they wanted to make moves and if they wanted to get ahead of shit, they fucking can. And they just drag their feet.
Yeah, it happens. And the team in their division, speaking of the Philadelphia Eagles, didn't have to pay Saquon Barkley. They paid him last year, but you know what? They're like, Saquon's still at the top of his game. We want to reward him. We want him happy. We want him. And Saquon, of all the players, you don't need to worry about holding out and, not doing what he's supposed to do from like a work ethic standpoint. Saquon's the last guy you'd have to worry about. But they extend him 2 years, $41.2 million or up to 41.2 with $36 million guaranteed. This all but guarantees he'll be with the team for the next 2 years. Great news for myself. I have tons of Saquon Barkley in Dynasty, and all my contending teams feel very good about it. So, this is what the Eagles do, and this is not what the Cowboys do, which is when you got a great player who had a great season, just reward him. Don't let it drag into the offseason. Don't let it be a story. Don't let it disrupt your locker room. Whatever you got to do, just pay him his money. And that's what the Eagles did. That's what the Bills obviously just did after an MVP year from Josh Allen. And pretty easy decision for both of those guys. So other extensions. This one was what's up?
Milton's to the. I thought it said to the Panthers. I'd up.
No, it said they were closing the deal. They were finalizing it, but it didn't go. And now the Patriots are blowing cash right now when it comes to paying the right tackle Morgan Moses from the Jets. They also threw $20 million at Carlton Davis. Somebody earlier in the chat asked what I thought about that deal. That is way too much money for Carlton Davis. He doesn't even deserve half of that, if I'm being completely honest with you. Like, dude, we traded Carlton for a 3rd round pick. The Lions cut him, and he was making way less money than that. The Patriots giving him $20 million per year is absurd. I get you have Gonzalez on one side. Carlton's feisty. He can, cut people down or whatever. Like, that is a horrible contract. $20 million for Carlton Davis is the most absurd contract I've seen today.
Hey, Cowboys are on the board, baby.
Who'd you sign?
Hey, a deal for Dallas. Long snapper Trent Sieg reached an agreement on a contract extension. Woo!
There you go.
That's funny enough. Trent Sieg actually Austin Eckler's best friend.
Oh, really? That's weird.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I used to play COD with Eckler.
Oh yes, you did. Nosh, you did Dallas incoming. Oh God, I would throw up.
Yeah, no. Dude, if they were gonna go the market way, Rico Dowdle will just come back. Like if they're not bringing back Dowdle, that's just a sign that they're gonna go in the draft.
Yeah, which I think we all kind of expect them to do, but you never know. They'll probably bring in something. Speaking of running backs, actually, one of the big fantasy relevant ones yesterday was Aaron Jones re-signing with the Minnesota Vikings on effectively a 1 year deal. It's a 2 year, $20 million deal, $13 million of that guaranteed. Obviously, if Aaron Jones was completely washed, couldn't stay healthy this year, something like that, they would probably just move on from him after 1 year. So people might see that and be like, oh no, like what do we do with the Vikings running back? We all wanted them to draft somebody, right? Like you and I both were like, oh my God, please draft Amari and Hampton in the 1st round or whatever. They now have pick 97 from the compensatory that they got for Kirk Cousins last year. They've picked 21 or 22. Where do they pick in the 1st round? 23?
Where did they pick? Vikings?
Anyways,
26?
Early 20s is where they pick. And then they don't have another pick after that till the 5th round. So they got 4 total draft picks this year. This definitely made sense for them to just bring back Aaron Jones. He played well. He was solid for you. You can still address the running back position in the draft. They'll probably be incentivized to trade down in the 1st round, potentially pick up more draft picks. Maybe at pick 97, they add a banger running back or whatever. We'll see.
No, knowing Kwesi, 100% he will trade down. Because it wasn't it a whole thing a couple years ago? Like the Vikings traded down with the Packers, no?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
There's a probably there. If there was betting odds on who's the most likely team to trade down in the entire draft, it would be the Minnesota Vikings. 100%.
That makes sense.
Only got four draft picks total, and you don't have a 2nd rounder. You don't have a 4th rounder. You don't have any 6th rounders. You don't have any 7th rounders. Like they're going to try and trade down in the 1st round, probably to pick up draft picks. And who knows if they trade down in the first round or even out of the first round altogether, potentially, they might be more in the market for a running back. And let's just say, for argument's sake, Danny, that the Vikings still take a first round running back, even though they paid Aaron Jones.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Would you, like, we'd be hammering the discount, right?
Absolutely.
Realistically, like they take Quinshon Judkins at 29 because they traded down or whatever. Like, we'd all be ecstatic about the discount we'd be getting on Judkins, because presumably in year one, it's probably a split backfield or whatever. But after year one, I mean, they can get out Aaron Jones pretty easily.
Yeah, no, it would make sense. I mean, Jones, my sentiment on him hasn't changed because, like you said, it's a 2-year deal. Like, even if they draft a running back, sure, year one, maybe it's a committee situation. By year two, I mean, the rookie's going to be the one that's going to be taking the big load. Pause.
Yeah, that's wild what you just said. Also, $26 million per year for Milton Williams.
26? Oh, fuck. Micah's making 66.
Dude, that's insane. The Patriots are writing blank checks to agents right now.
I mean, it makes me like, obviously, I think on the open market, you probably slightly take Milton, but I mean, it makes me feel good about the Osa deal because I think we got him at 20 or 21. So
yeah, you know what it doesn't make me feel good about? If Cansey's gonna have a good year this year, we're gonna have to fucking pay him like $40 million. Yeah.
So IDL is just now a fucking value position in the league now. Like
I mean,
like Mason Graham, top 5 pick? Question mark.
Oh yeah, I think he's gonna go top 5 anyways.
Yeah, by the time he's due for a contract, he'll probably make 45.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty crazy how much money these guys are getting. The salary cap, you don't want to be in the Patriots situation. Like, it means you don't have good players to pay. Yeah. Like, you have $129 million in cap space. I get you have a young team or whatever, but like, dude, you don't need to use all of that cap to sign, average players on the free agent market to like elite deals. I mean, Milton Williams is a good player and he's definitely probably going to contribute and help the Patriots out. But like, you would much rather be like, oh, we have 3 good free agents up for a contract extension this year. Let's use our money on that instead of paying random free agents a ton of money. And that's what Tampa does. Like, we just, the players we've signed today, scoreboard, have been Ben Bredesen, who we literally had on our team, who was our left guard last year, Chris Godwin, who was our best receiver until he got injured last year. We signed a 1-year deal on Hassan Reddick, who Todd Bowles is familiar with, Bruce Arians, who's in the front office, drafted in Arizona. So yeah, maybe it's a bit of a gamble, but 1 year up to $14 million for a guy who had 18 sacks 2 years ago or something like that. I feel pretty good about that deal.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a low risk signing too, considering it's a 1-year deal.
Yeah. And you have a guy who knows how to, who knows the player, knows the person, interviewed him before the draft. So if you think he's a head case, Bruce Arians should know how to deal with that. And Todd Bowles should know how to deal with that. So I feel pretty good about all those deals. Back to fantasy stuff. What's up?
I'm not sure if you had seen this, but the ultimate feeling, according to Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic, is that the Jets will be the team that ends up getting Justin Fields.
I did see that report. Yeah, it looks like the Steelers are aiming their sights on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are aiming their sights on Justin Fields, because obviously the initial report a couple of weeks back was that the Steelers wanted Justin Fields back, but maybe he's making a push to go to the Jets. And I know a lot of people are going to be maybe elated by this because the Jets didn't draft Justin Fields, and a lot of people thought they should have drafted Justin Fields over Zach Wilson back in 2021. I kind of like the move for Justin Fields if he goes to the Jets, and I think the Jets would still be in the market probably for a second-day quarterback. Like, everybody's penciling in, let's go Justin Fields, Jalen Milroe, wherever Justin Fields ends up getting drafted or getting signed. I think it would actually make quite a bit of sense for the Jets, to be honest.
God, could you imagine? Could you imagine quarterback meetings?
I know, Garrett Wilson's going to want to be traded by week 4, but we'll see what happens.
He played with Fields. Maybe he just says, that's my guy,
He did play with Fields. That is true.
Yeah.
Maybe he's actually ecstatic about a deal like that. But I mean, we all know what'll happen. If the Jets get Justin Fields, it'll be, you want Brees from that offense and absolutely nobody else.
Yeah. And literally. Maybe late shots on Fields in best ball just because he's going to run the ball.
Oh yeah, Fields himself will also be kind of interesting, but I think Garrett's price will drop significantly if Justin Fields is the quarterback, right? How much? Yeah. Where does Garrett go now? 2nd round, 3rd round?
Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, and let's talk just where the market would have him. I don't know where he goes on Underdog currently right now.
Definitely not 2nd. I would say 3-4 turn, 3rd to 3-4 turn. He was he went in the 2nd last year, and people view him as a bust. And now you're gonna.
Doesn't he go in the second right now on like?
Does he actually?
I think he does, man.
I mean, I'm so as if people might be pessimistic on Aaron Rodgers, but I'm telling you right now, from a passing perspective, I would take Rodgers 100 times out of 100 over fucking Justin Fields.
Yeah, no, I think that would be the sentiment of a lot of people. I think if Garrett Wilson has Justin Fields as his quarterback, he goes to like a third or a fourth round pick probably.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everybody's saying DJ Moore, but it's like that's 1 year out of his career that he's supported wide receivers.
DJ was better with Fields than he was with Caleb last year.
I mean, contextually though, he also played with Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen on the same field.
He did, but like I don't know.
You're not wrong,
I'd be probably taking the discount on Garrett if he was falling a lot.
If he's a 3-4 turn, I'm smashing him. If he's a mid to late third, I'm smashing him. But if he's a second round pick, like there's going to be running backs and wide receivers better there.
He won't be. There's no way the market would push him up to the second round if Justin Fields was his quarterback. It's a 0% chance it happens. Not to mention if he's the only guy there, like maybe people talk themselves into him, but like I don't know. I think Fields and Garrett would make a lot of sense because they've already played together. That's the thing that we have to factor in for sure.
Yeah, they're absolutely stylistically different players. I'm just concerned about. I mean, people will shit on Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers again can support a passing game 100 times better than Justin Fields can. That's just where I'm at with it.
We'll see if this actually ends up coming to fruition. But like. Here's my thing on Garrett Wilson right now. Who do we want them to sign? Like, who are they going to get other than Justin Fields? Like, I guess you hope they draft like Shadur Sanders.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Dude, like, what is the option for New York at this moment?
Could you imagine the ownership trying to convince their fan base? Like, yeah, we brought back Sam Darnold. We're going to run it back with him.
You know what you should do just for the meme? You sign Sam Darnold to a big extension and then you back him up with Zach Wilson and just see if you can get things right with a better coaching staff. Just do the two guys that you missed on.
I mean, the last couple deals, I mean, whatever. Tommy Tremble, 2x16 to Carolina. People might say, young tight end. He's getting an extension. We got to take him in best ball. He's a second tight end. He's a blocking tight end. That's blocking tight end money. We kind of talked about it. I mean, when you pointed out the Josh Oliver contract, that's probably the one that Tommy Tremble used in reference to his new deal.
Yeah, I actually think, if anything, the only fantasy relevant note of this is that I actually think Jatavian Sanders might be literally free on the market right now. And I think he's worth the swing because he's more the pass catching archetype anyway. But what did you and I both have an issue with at Texas? He's like, he doesn't know how to block. He's not going to have to block with Tommy Tremble there.
Yeah, Isaiah Likely.
What about Isaiah Likely?
Comparing him to JT.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In that
be like
sense.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the one that you actually skipped over that was kind of fantasy relevant was Marquise Brown going back to the Chiefs on a 1 year deal.
Yeah. No, that was actually hidden right in the middle of that.
Yeah. I mean, Marquise Brown, where was he going in best ball? That's like 5th, 6th round before his injury.
Yeah, around there. I mean, where did you take him in the Flock League?
I got him in the 8th round, but.
Oh, okay.
That was after he was hurt, though.
No, was it?
It was. It makes the pick look stupider and stupider.
Oh,
but it was after he was hurt. It was not announced that he would be out for the year, though. Remember, because I traded him in the trade to Mason, and then he was ruled out for the year. We thought he was going to be like out for the first 3 to 4 weeks when I drafted him in the 8th round.
Okay, yeah, no, yeah. Where do you think he's going to be? Like, if he's like a 10th round pick, like
I'd be interested in that, man. Like, I think when you look at a quarterback like Mahomes, we could all sit here and say on paper, Rashee Rice should be maybe the PPR guy, Xavier Worthy, the big play guy. And then where does that leave Marquise Brown, especially with Kelsey getting targets? Darnold took, okay, we'll talk about that in 1 second, but yeah, Marquise Brown to me is an interesting like flyer to take in dynasty contending situations. And we'll see where his redraft ADP lines up. Cause I think him just getting hurt kind of just screwed what's going to happen there.
Darnold signed the Baker deal.
He did sign, in fact, the exact deal that Baker Mayfield signed. 3 years, nearly $100 million with the Seahawks. A choice, to say the least, by Seattle. I mean, I think we kind of all expected this, but still wild that they were like, yeah, we would rather pay Darnold the exact contract that we are going to give Geno kind of thing.
I don't think it's outrageous to say he's a really good fit for what Kubiak is trying to do on offense. But the problem that I have is we have clear evidence that Darnold will turn into a pumpkin against pressure, and they still have a bottom 3 interior offensive line in the league. That's my concern. And they just traded DK Metcalf and lost Tyler Lockett. So
I hope this is a front-loaded guaranteed deal where it's essentially a 1-year contract. I really hope for the Seattle Seahawks sake
55 guaranteed. So probably a 1-year 55. And then if he doesn't fucking live up to it, you can get off after the year. But
he probably wanted 2 years of guaranteed money, at least to some degree. It's probably 35 in the first year and then 20 in the second year or something like that. I think also very much true. If you're a Seahawks fan, why not just suck? Why not just suck? Just play Sam Howell this year or something. Go sign Zach Wilson and Sam Howell and just have chaos for the year. Embrace chaos.
I know why you said Zach Wilson and Sam Howell. That's the Bush quarterback room.
It is, but like, dude, worst case scenario, you draft like Arch Manning or something next year. Like, I don't know why you have to go pay Darnold and you went from sitting in NFL purgatory, is literally Timothy just read my mind, with Geno Smith, where you're going to be a 10-win team and never win a playoff game. And now you just kind of got like a slightly worse but younger version of Geno Smith. Like, and that's kind of being nice to Sam Darnold, to say the least. Dude, to say he's a younger version of Geno Smith, I think would be a success from Sam Darnold.
Dude, Geno's way better. Like
I don't know.
I mean, we mentioned the cut line for like quarterbacks you would feel comfortable extending to big money. Darnold's like right below that, where it's like, oh, if you're desperate, I can see it, but would I feel fucking good about it? Fuck no.
Yeah. So obvious fallout here is we didn't actually even really talk about this when it came to Metcalf and Geno leaving. Is Smith and with all these moves that happened, Smith and Jigba was wide receiver 11, wide receiver 10 for most people, kind of in Dynasty. With Metcalf gone, Geno gone, Darnold in. Does he move up, down, stay the same in your rankings?
So I had him going into the free agency cycle as the wide receiver 12 in Dynasty. I think at this point, I mean, like, obviously context matters. If you're competing, you take an AJ Brown. I think that's fine. JSN or Garrett Wilson is my question to you.
I have Smith and Jigba higher, and I had him higher before.
So did I. And I think that's probably the right take, because even though Darnold's an uncertainty, I would still much rather him at this point than Justin Fields. So,
yeah, and I'll be clear here. I think it's possible that Darnold builds upon what he did in the first year there, being a full-time starter with the Vikings, and kind of like Baker, for example. I don't know if people were 100% sold Baker would be what he was in 2024 after his 2023 season. So it's definitely possible. But the major difference there is coaching, offensive line play, and continuity. It's not the same situation. If he had signed a 3-year, $100 million deal with the Vikings, I think we'd all be thinking different at this moment.
100%. I mean, it goes to me with I can't get over the offensive line fit.
Yeah, the line is a problem. It's not Tampa Bay's line. This is not a Baker situation, because Tampa Bay's line is significantly better than Seattle's.
Like, going back to the stats that I said in regards to why Kenneth Walker was a faller for me, and technically speaking, right now he's RB 14 to 15 in my rankings. But as soon as the rookie class comes, like, he's going to be way close to the RB 20. And a couple of people were like, "Well, you're not." Under, like, they could supplement the offensive line in the draft and free agency, and the scheme fit makes sense. I think that's perfectly reasonable. I just think it is a significant downgrade going from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold, and the metrics would point to it. Like I said, I mentioned the pressure. Third longest time to throw for Darnold last year, fourth highest rate of pressure, whereas Geno Smith had the 11th highest, quickest time to throw at 2.82, and was only pressured 0.6% more of the time. Specifically in the 2024 season, actually, Ben Solak tweeted this out. Geno Smith, eighth in success rate, 13th in EPA per drop back, third in on target rate, fifth in completion percentage over expectation, first in explosive pass rate. And he didn't get the tether of working with Kevin O'Connell. Yeah, no, I mean, Darnold could go out there and prove that he belongs or whatever. I'm going to move JSN down a few spots, I think. Yeah. Now, where is the question? He's going to stay in the same tier. He was in a tier with Ladd McConkey, Garrett Wilson, and AJ Brown for me. So I think he's going to stay in the same tier. He just goes to the end of said tier. Now, so you would take Garrett Wilson over him? We just had that question. I did, because I would, because I think even if Fields is the quarterback, because I think that's probably where it's trending right now. Yeah. At least Fields and Wilson have a pre-existing connection, and Wilson to me is a still better real life receiver than what JSN is, in my opinion. I think the difference in the culture and the vibe around the New York Jets will be dramatically different this year with Aaron Glenn as the coach. And I think a lot of why Garrett Wilson didn't really take the step we were all thinking is because it was just such a clusterfuck of a team. Yeah, no, I think it's fair to say.
But that's a conversation. I'm not going to argue with anybody that would prefer JSN because he's gotten a better season, so far than what Garrett Wilson has done. That being said, too, if T. Higgins signed an extension with the Bengals, I would move T. Higgins ahead of JSN as well.
Yeah, they were T. Higgins currently 15, but if he does sign that extension, I think you can argue him up to 13. Where's the explosive? That is another good point. Like,
it's in the draft. They're going to draft somebody. I think it'll be Golden that they draft in the first round, to be honest, if he makes it there.
That's what I was going to say. Is he even going to make it there?
Maybe not, but they do pick ahead of a lot of the wide receiver needy teams. Maybe not all of them, but like they pick in a good honeypot to where Golden could go.
I think Golden's going to be the first receiver off the board.
Okay, well, even McMillan or Igbuka or whoever else would make a lot of sense for what Seattle needs to do to build around Darnold. They might be like, okay, we just signed Sam Darnold to this extension. We got to build around him, get him receivers, all that kind of stuff. Smith and that's part of the reason why I'm not going to just like skyrocket Smith and Jigba thinking he's going to have 170 targets is that I expect them to kind of add somebody in the draft at some point.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So those are the extensions. I mean, we could talk about the offensive line signings. I think by far the biggest movers or winners so far in terms of addressing a position of need in free agency. You cannot be salivating sorry, let me rephrase that. You should be foaming at the mouth if you own Bears pieces, because what they did to their interior offensive line, if you have Caleb Williams, if you have Rome Odunze, if you have DJ Moore, we're not even talking about just Ben Johnson himself, because obviously the scheme fit is going to matter the most. But the fact that they got Jonah Jackson, Joe Thuney, and now signed today Drew Dahlman to, I believe, $14 million on a 3-year deal, AAV.
$42 million in 3 years total.
Completely fixed their interior offensive line. And drafted Darnell Wright last year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and say that they fixed it, but them addressing their offensive line is great news. And we talked about it already. If anybody thinks that Ashton Genty is not going to be the pick for them if he's available at 10, you're nuts. Sell DeAndre Swift immediately. I don't think he's going to be all these upgrades.
I don't think he's going to be available, first and foremost. Second of all, is it out of the range of possibility that if Genty's gone, they don't take Omar at 10?
I think that would be a far-fetched move for them to make, but I think they would take one in the second round, probably.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, regardless, though, I talked about Caleb Williams yesterday. I talked about Rome Odunze yesterday. Caleb Williams himself, I mean, we've seen what he can do from an improvisational standpoint, but now he can actually play in structure because he can trust his offensive line. Like, that's a number one thing for a young quarterback is just being able to trust your line.
Like the one thing I will say in defense of the Bears, because, we got Jared in the chat, Bears will still suck or whatever. You didn't overpay 3 free agent offensive linemen. And for what it's worth, Carolina did this last year, and Bryce Young had a good interior offensive line and Chuba Hubbard had a great season. So addressing interior guys with a former multi-time Pro Bowler in Joe Thuney, a Pro Bowl caliber guy, and I believe he's been a Pro Bowler in Jonah Jackson, and
with Ben Johnson a couple years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Drew Dahlman, who was the best center on the market as well. Is it ideal to pay all these interior guys what you're going to have to pay all these interior guys instead of just drafting and developing like all the good teams do? No, but like what else were they going to do? They had no interior offensive line last year. And like you said, they had a rookie starting at right tackle in Darnell Wright, who should be better now with better talent around him.
Second year, sorry. Because last year it was Caleb and Odunze. They got him the year before.
Right. Sorry, the year before. And offensive linemen generally take a couple years to develop as well. So again, are the Bears going to have the best offensive line in the league? Probably not. But are they going to have the worst offensive line in the league or close to the worst offensive line in the league like they probably had last year? No.
Yeah. No. And again, like you just want to give your young quarterback as much support as you can. And that is what Ben Johnson did. He said, listen, I'm taking this job. I believe in Caleb Williams. This is what I need to make this thing work. And guess what? Ryan Poles made it happen.
The low-hanging fruit last year was, oh, God, look how many good weapons he has. And he did. He had great weapons last year. He had Moore, he had Odunze, and he had Keenan Allen, and he had a good run, decent running backs. And he didn't have coaching or an O-line, though. And those were the foundations of why he didn't have the capable rookie season that he should have had. When he had good games, his O-line played better than they were built to be in those games. That game against Jacksonville and London, they actually had a good game. And it's no surprise why Caleb had the game he did. So I feel pretty good about Caleb going forward. You have been definitely the leader in the, clubhouse as far as beating the drum for Caleb and Odunze and all these guys. But I feel a lot better about it, knowing what they've done so far.
I thought Darius Slay was almost a shoo-in to go back to the Eagles. He signed with the Steelers.
Interesting.
But yeah, call me crazy still. I understand people will say, okay, listen, he didn't have the year that I expected as a rookie, and that's fine. Somebody wants to take Caleb Williams in the first round of a startup. I'm not fighting it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. One thing that I just want to circle back to the Seahawks thing for 1 second, because we didn't actually talk about McCarthy or Darnold, the dynasty assets. So McCarthy, obviously, I would expect either one. This is what's going to happen. I don't think Minnesota is going to go into the season with McCarthy uncontested.
Or McCarthy, sorry.
They're going to either bring back Daniel Jones, which is probably the most likely thing that will happen, or they're going to go and pivot to like Jacoby Brissett or somebody like that, because they've got familiarity in that scheme and all that kind of stuff. If Daniel Jones gets more money from the Colts, he'll get more money from the Colts and that kind of thing. But I do think this is great for JJ's dynasty value, of course. The real risk out there was that he signed this exact contract with Minnesota. It was definitely possible to happen.
It was. And then the Vikings, I mean, we both believe in JJ McCarthy. Obviously, last year, it really is unfortunate with the signs. That's another thing, too. Obviously, at this point, because we're so far gone from it, JJ McCarthy looks so good in the preseason with that Viking scheme, to the point where everybody and their mother was ecstatic. I mean, he was one of my favorite late round best ball picks coming into the year. And then as soon as it was announced, I believe a week before the year, that he was going to have that scope on his knee and miss the year, like, are people not forgetting, or are people not remembering just how much hype there was at that point?
There was a ton of hype after those preseason games. Jefferson's freaking out and stuff. So it's funny because I want to go over a dynasty trade that I made.
Justin?
No, Jefferson was ecstatic. JJ McCarthy, when he had those preseason games, I remember he throws the long touchdown. Justin Jefferson's freaking out and all that kind of stuff. Do you remember I made this trade in our league last year, November 14th, with Ryan Brolo? I traded JJ McCarthy in a fourth for Tua Tagovailoa and a third. Is the trade that I ended up making. I've gone so back and forth on if I like this trade for me or not. I think given the risk that Darnold re-signed for a 3-year deal or something with the Vikings, I still feel comfortable in the deal that I ended up making, and the fact that I'm just generally higher on Tua than the market seems to be. But let me ask you the question right now: would you rather have McCarthy or Tagovailoa straight up in Dynasty?
JJ. I've had JJ higher.
Okay, so that's where I'm talking about, because to me, Tua is like the middle of that quarterback tier, whereas JJ's more towards the end of it. But I think it sounds like you're in the inverse, where you have Tua pretty much at the end of that quarterback tier, and JJ's more in the middle of it.
I have JJ at quarterback 18 right now, and if we got the report that he'd be starting from day one, I think you can even make the case that he'd be in the tier above with like the Mayfield, the Purdy, the Lawrence, the Dak. Like, I really do. There's a realm of possibility that, I mean, right now it's like everybody is on one side. Yeah, no, Ben.
We're gonna put you in time. Yeah, we're gonna put you in timeout.
Yeah, no. Okay. The G. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get that out of here.
Yeah, none of that. We're not doing that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Keep in mind, like, JJ McCarthy, consensus-wise, was going over Bo Nix in rookie drafts last year. And now if anybody said this offseason they would rather have JJ over Bo Nix, they'd be looked at as crazy. But in a year time,
you simply can't.
100%. And I agree. Like, Nix is 13, McCarthy is 18. But if you told me in a year time that McCarthy would be at least in the same tier, if not even slightly higher, would that at all shock you?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's possible that a year from now we're talking about it. Same goes for, like, would anybody have said Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, or sorry, Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson? You'd rather have Bryce Young this time last year. You would have been nuts, right? Ew, what? Oh,
Samaje Perine?
What? 3 years, 22 million, dude? What are we doing?
Is that real?
What are we doing, dude?
What?
So first of all, Perine, I know why this deal happened. Bruce Arians loves Samaje Perine. He has never stopped loving Samaje Perine for some reason. I don't know why. I've heard Jake Arians, Bruce Arians' son, talk about how great Samaje Perine was at Oklahoma. Dude, he's like 30 years old. Like, why are we signing? Like, didn't we learn from Chase Edmonds that this is a stupid thing to do, is pay old running backs? What are we doing?
Did you need a Samaje Perine? Like, why not just run it back with Rashad and fucking Bucky?
Give that money to Rashad White if you're going to give it to anyone. Like, Rashad's the last year of his rookie deal. I'd rather have Rashad White for that contract. What the hell was that?
Yeah, shout out Perine. I hope Perine takes his agent for a nice, expensive steak dinner after that fucking deal.
So, as much as I like always hype up the Bucks front office of how good of a franchise we are. We are good for one blunder contract per year. Like, and this is obviously going to be it.
Yeah, he must be the best locker room guy ever if he's getting this money.
He must be a super great hang. That's so funny. It's definitely true though. Like, I mean, this is not good for Rachaad White. Let's just put it that way. Because the only thing he had on Bucky Irving was pass protection, and Perine's now the best pass protector on the team.
And yeah, is Perine the rusher he was in his prime? No, not at all. But the one thing that he was doing for the Patriots, for the Chiefs last year was playing third down and catching passes out of the backfield. That was the only utility you got. Wait, what?
There it is. Justin Fields to the Jets.
What's the money?
2-year deal worth $40 million, 30 guaranteed. Wow. That's a wild deal, man. I kind of, is it me or like, so the obvious winner of this deal is Justin Fields, his dynasty value.
Easily. Okay.
He's the obvious winner here.
Let me ask you, Justin Fields or Anthony Richardson in dynasty?
Justin Fields, not even close.
I agree. Okay. Justin Fields or Matthew Stafford?
I'd rather have Justin Fields, man.
Because you didn't think it'd be that much money or 2 years,
I didn't think it'd be that much money on a 2-year deal.
I mean, we'll talk about the other signing today. You'd still take Darnold over Fields, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
I'd rather have Geno. I'd rather have Geno over Fields too, for what it's worth.
Round quarterback 25 range.
Yeah, like, so I had the tier that I had was Darnold, Geno, Fields, or Richardson and Stafford in some order, whatever order you'd want to put those guys in. And Fields was the next guy, like the first guy in the next tier. But with that kind of money and Richardson, like, it hasn't happened yet. I still have Richardson in this tier at the end of it. But when Daniel Jones goes to the Colts, or a quarterback goes to the Colts that's going to compete with him, Richardson probably moves to the tier below, or at the very least, he stays clearly at the bottom of this tier. But Wilson's got to be the guy that everyone's going to talk about from like a dynasty value standpoint. Now that it's official, let's have the conversation. Let's hash it out right now. Would we rather have Jackson Smith and Jigba, or would you rather have Garrett Wilson? We got to have this conversation now.
JSN.
You'd rather have JSN than Wilson, guaranteed?
One spot higher, but yeah.
Yeah. Would you rather have Lad McConkey than both guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That was the other part. I'd rather. Here's a hot take too. This obviously would be team dependent. I think I would rather have AJ Brown than both players.
Yeah. I just moved AJ Brown to 12.
Yeah. I think I would rather have AJ than both players, just given what the projection is of the Eagles offense versus, now you have concerns about how good are the Seahawks going to be. Is Darnold going to feature JSN? Are they going to add more players? That kind of thing. I think JSN has to be marginally downgraded based on all of the events that transpired. Yes, good that Metcalf's gone, more targets, but Geno was better than Darnold. Darnold's a big of a risk. It's a tough situation for JSN. He's still going to probably retain relatively the same value that he had before. But if people were thinking he was going to go up in value as a result of Metcalf's trade or whatever, that kind of hurts him a tad bit. But maybe we're overreacting on JSN. I have him at 13. AJ, the only change I made was AJ Brown moved ahead of him. That's the only change I made for what it's worth.
AJ at 12, Jason at 13, Garrett at 14, and T. Higgins at 15. I have as tier 4. And then I do think there is a slight mini tier because I have London, McConkey, and Marv at 9 through 11. That would be tier 3.
Agreed.
For me. Yeah. And then obviously tier 2 and tier 1, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. But if you at this point, we should know the top 8 wide receivers in Dynasty because I think it's like Amon-Ra, Nico, Puka, Malik, Brian Thomas Jr., JJ, Lamb, and Chase. Very comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. I do have to head out of here, so I'm gonna pop out. If you want to stay live, go nuts. Obviously, I would say we could always just wrap it up. We're gonna be doing more trade reaction, signings reaction probably tomorrow around the same time. So we'll recap anything that comes in after the fact and any other details that come out at that point in time. Ethan asked, can we expect a dynasty ranking update, trade value chart update? Dynasty rankings updates I've been doing while these have been happening. So those are live like immediately. Trade value chart update, I'll probably wait a few days before we do that, just because, we
maybe by next weekend or by the weekend.
By this weekend, I would say is probably when you can expect that. The dust needs to settle on a lot of these other deals before we just start throwing those updates together. So I would say that's going to be the one thing to pay attention to. But yeah, we'll head off of the stream. We'll probably be live again tomorrow. Are you going to stay on, Danny? You're going to?
I'll probably head off, get something to eat. Maybe have a coffee because I haven't had any caffeine today, and I'm kind of like dragging. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, I'm glad I'm feeling like myself again because I had quite the bad instance of either the flu or bronchitis last week. I'm more than sure because I couldn't move
for sure. We did not actually talk about Eli Mitchell going to the Chiefs.
That's a good point.
If you got him in Dynasty, I guess you feel good about that, but I'm not really that excited about it, to be honest. But if you have him, I feel like that's a good range of outcomes that could have happened for it. But yeah, we'll probably head off of here. Obviously, got some happy birthdays in the chat from Danny.
Appreciate that. Yes, sir. For those of you that didn't watch yesterday's video, I did turn the big old 2-5 yesterday on the 9th. Yeah,
so Danny is officially a Wash Dynasty asset as a 25-year-old
quarter century.
Now. Yeah, I'm gonna be like you're ancient. I'm gonna be 27 in September, so I'm an ancient running back at this point in time. Like we're talking, I've been a sell for 3 years now at this point.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. The Justin Fields to the Jets. Yeah, no, that dude, we were fucking 20 and 22. Like literally, shit ages you. Like I don't even. It doesn't feel real. The time since COVID started. Like just like the time frame, like it's 5 years, it feels like 2 or 3.
Yeah, we went from being younger than the prospects to being younger than older, older than old running backs in the NFL. Like Najee Harris is the same age.
I'm not getting a second contract.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, we're going to head off of here again. There's going to be more signings that come through. Pay attention to the site, flockfantasy.com, for Dynasty rankings updates. Also, quick announcement before we head off, Listener League. If you guys want in it, it is linked in the description of this live stream. You can get in 1 ballot for free. If you aren't a site subscriber, you have a chance to still get in the league. 5 ballots if you are an annual Mother Flocker using promo code FSE. 3 if you're a annual Flocker using code FSE. And then 2 if you're just a monthly subscriber with either Flocker or Mother Flocker. So if you guys want to join that Listener League, head on to the link in the description after this live stream is over. We are going to draw names for that on Saturday, the 15th of March. And then we're going to get that going as soon as we can. And again, all the details for the league settings and buy-ins and all that stuff will be, first of all, hashed out once we all get everyone in the league. And some of it is listed in that form there too.
One thing about the league, I'll talk to you off camera as well after we're done.
Yes, for sure. So again, appreciate you guys for joining us. We'll recap more of these tomorrow. And tons of news. Pay attention to the Dynasty rankings. They'll be updated on the site as soon as possible.
Yes, sir. Take care.